Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hawk Blogger. And here we are, Thursday before the Monday, where the Seahawks, your undefeated Seahawks, will take on the Detroit Lions, the big bad Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football in Detroit. It's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. I think it's going to be one of the best games of the season so far, and cannot wait to learn a little bit more about this squad. And I think we're going to learn about them on offense. We're going to learn about them on defense. And not only are we going to learn how much of what we've seen is going to be sustainable, but we're going to learn a little bit about like where in the pecking order this team is. And I think when you've got a team like the Seahawks, who nobody knows what to make of, really. I'll tell you, I almost played it, but it wasn't even worth playing. There was some Detroit sound I heard where they were going through contenders and pretenders, and they were very clear that the Seahawks are pretenders. I don't think people know. I don't think we even really know. I think I know. I think they're for real. I think the Seahawks are for real. I don't know if they are Super Bowl contenders, if that's the bar, but I think that this team's for real, and I think we're going to find out a lot more on Monday. It is interesting, though, that the Lions are a team the Seahawks have beaten each of the last 2 years. That did not make them contenders. So there are some unique aspects about this game that, We'll learn a little bit more, certainly, over the next 10 days after that game where the Seahawks play 3 times. Monday night in Detroit at home against the Giants, and then Thursday night at home against the 49ers. So it's going to be a hectic Monday night is going to kick off a very hectic 10 days for the Seahawks. Before I get going here, I want to thank everybody. We've actually finally crossed the 1,000 follower mark over there on Instagram. Really appreciate all of you. And I especially want to give a shout out to William Hart, who's been creating all the shorts and reels content and is the reason that that's even happening over there. I mean, he's done amazing work. I don't tell Will anything about what to put on there. He's doing it all on his own, and it takes a lot of work, and it's a labor of love, and he's just doing it to contribute to the community. And I just really, really appreciate Will. And if you run into Will in the channel, on chat, wherever, just make sure you send him some love, because I'm super grateful that he's been creating those shorts. With all the other things I'm doing, that is not something I can make time for, and he's been doing a fantastic job. So thank you for all following there. And what we're going to talk about today, speaking of, determining exactly what we've got and finding, learning more about this team, I think there are some hidden heroes, as I've referred to them, on this squad that I want to kind of reveal a little bit in this episode. And so I'm going to go through and talk to you all about some of these players and what they're doing that you might not know. And some of them are going to be guys that are like, well, that's not a hidden hero. I know that guy. But it might be an aspect of the way that player is contributing to the team that you might not know. And so I'm going to go through and share. I've got a few of these to go through. We'll see where we get on that. I want to start there. A lot of how I'm finding these insights and learning about these guys is through my access to FTN. So if you have not already gone over to ftnfantasy.com, use promo code HBAM for Hawk Blogger Mornings. HBAM. That will get you 15% off for an FTN Plus or greater subscription. That's what I've got. I've been a subscriber before I even partnered with FTN. It's great content over there. The data is amazing. I use it multiple times a day. And if I didn't do this, I mean, I've been looking to get this kind of data for years, and essentially like sports SIS and that kind of stuff, thousands, $5,000-$6,000 a year. So super grateful that we got this HBAM promo code, less than $8 a month, gets you the same subscription I've got, and I love it. And I think I've heard from people that have also subscribed. They love the Discord channel. They're able to go in there and ask questions about fantasy football, about sports betting, about anything else related to the data. And I think it's been great. So let's jump in. First hidden hero I want to talk about is Rayshawn Jenkins. And you might be like, well, I don't know if that qualifies as a hidden hero. He's a starter. He's made some big plays. I think that people are a little bit sleeping on what Rayshawn Jenkins has been contributing. And I wanted to at least illustrate a few things about really the safety position in general. I almost put Julian Love in this list as well, but that felt, I knew I'd get a lot of, furrowed brows calling him hidden, given that he's been so good for the Seahawks this year. But when you look at the safety position for the Seahawks, first of all, if I go through and I look at who has, well, let me see if I've got it open here. I did have it open. There we did. Oh, got it. If you go through and you figure out, solo tackles in the NFL, this is typically a linebacker stat. Generally, it's a linebacker stat. If I look at the leaders in solo tackles in the NFL, just about every one of them is a linebacker. 2 of the top 15 in that category are safeties for the Seahawks. Julian Love is number 7. Actually, he's tied for number 6. And then Rayshawn Jenkins is tied for 10th. Rayshawn Jenkins has as many solo tackles this year as Bobby Wagner for the Commanders. And he has just been, I think, a absolute assassin out there in his tackling. And he also, there was another stat, I think I lost it, so I won't share it now, but he has just been, let me see if I've got it. Oh, there it is. I got it here. Never mind. I can do this. There is a stat called stops, and stops in this parlance mean any kind of defensive tackle that constitutes a failure for the offense. Usually that is an unsuccessful play. It doesn't always have to be a tackle for loss. It can be a tackle for a short gain. Among all the safeties in football, the number 1 player in the NFL is Budda Baker, 13. That should not be a big surprise. That's Budda's game. He's been flying around. He's been a physical safety for years. Number 2 in the NFL for stops, Rayshawn Jenkins with 11. So Budda Baker has 13. Rayshawn Jenkins has 11. That's a big deal. I haven't done this yet, so I don't know what I'm going to find. I'm going to look back at 2023 to see who are the safeties that had the most stops in the NFL last year. And guess who is number 2 on that list? A guy named Kyle Hamilton with 40. So, I want to talk about this for a second because we're going to get back to the safety position in general. I'm focusing on Rayshawn Jenkins, but let's talk about the safety position in general. Julian Love is the number 1 graded by PFF, graded safety in the NFL this year. 90.6 grade. Rayshawn Jenkins is the 8th graded safety 81 grade. So you have 2 of the top 8 safeties in the same room. And I think you have a very strong argument to make that you have the best safety room in the NFL. Now, remember, I just brought up one Kyle Hamilton, who was the it guy last year, right? This was the all-pro, do-everything, dominant player. Kyle Hamilton, through 3 games, has a 64.5 grade. He is the 28th graded safety in the NFL. So, yes, PFF grades or whatever they are, but everyone watching those games can tell you that Rayshawn Jenkins and Julian Love have been massively impactful for the Seahawks. I think the safety play difference this year over last year is massive. And some of it's the players, and some of it's certainly the coaching. But wanted to highlight Rayshawn Jenkins as a guy who I just think has been brilliant this year. Absolutely brilliant. Next guy on the list. I never in a million years would have thought I would do a show where I put my face next to a statement that Stone Forsythe is a hidden hero. Never. I've not been high on Stone Forsythe. I've been very hard on Stone Forsythe. I have to acknowledge that he has been a much better player than we could have reasonably expected through 3 games. Certainly going to get a test this weekend. It doesn't mean that he's made it and he's great. Not saying any of those things. But let me give you a couple things to think about with Stone Forsythe. All right? Stone Forsythe, overall, I'm going to go back and get to what I was looking at before here. Stone Forsythe overall has a 64.7 grade as a tackle in the NFL. And that's out of, he ranks 36th out of 62. He's like, but basically there are only 46 tackles in the NFL who have a 60 or better grade. 60 is league average. It's not great, but if you read my article on the decay of the offensive line, this is like 20% of the NFL is offensive linemen are 60 or better at this point. So he is now at 64.7. His pass block grade, his run block grade, 65.8. That ranks 33rd in the NFL. Only 40 guys have a 60 or better grade. Stone Forsythe is one of them. If you just go to week 3, last week, maybe his best game. Stone Forsythe last week had a 73.1 grade, 77.0 pass block grade. He was the 14th best tackle in football last week. He was right behind Charles Cross. Charles Cross was the 13th at 73.2. You know who's number 12? Trent Williams, 74.3. That's another hidden hero in terms of going the other way in regression. But the Seahawks had the 13th and 14th highest graded tackles in the NFL last week. As far as Stone Forsythe's career, his first year, 35.3 grade. He didn't have his run block grade was 42. His pass block grade was 31. Last year, what he was asked to play a lot, 58.2 grade, 71.4 run block, 40.8 pass block. He had he had a couple good games last year, but in general was a real a real challenge. So I think it's just worth acknowledging that Forsythe has just been better, has been better than is reasonably expected. Think about the fact that he is your third string tackle. A lot of people, not Seahawks fans, but a lot of outside people, like, he's their backup tackle. He's their third string tackle. You got Abe Lucas, who's out. You've got George Fant, who got injured. And then you get down to Stone Forsythe. And so most teams are not getting his level of performance from their starters, let alone a third string player. So kudos to Stone Forsythe. I think he has been, I mean, as much as the guards have been a problem, it could have been even worse if Stone Forsythe was just as bad as he's been in previous years. So Stone Forsythe is my second hidden hero. My third hidden hero, and he's not that hidden, is Dee Williams. If you've been watching this show, you've been hearing me talk about him. Dee Williams had as inglorious of a start to his career as you could have. Fumbles a punt in his first game. Excuse me while I clear my throat. Still getting over this cold. Sorry, folks. Fumbles a punt, leads to points for the Broncos, then makes a questionable decision about how to field another punt inside the 10-yard line that ends up being downed right at the 1, led to a safety. And that's just tough. Undrafted free agent coming in. Well, then what has he done since then? Dee Williams since then had a huge punt return against the Patriots. And this was the play right before halftime. The Seahawks got the ball back with 35 seconds to go. Their punter on the Patriots kicked it 64 yards. Should have been the end of the half, essentially. But Dee Williams returned that punt 23 yards, gave the Seahawks the ball at their own, basically at the 50-yard line, their own 49. And then the Seahawks were able to get a field goal before half. That game went to overtime. There's no guarantee you win that game if Dee Williams doesn't do what he did in that game. He also, later in that game, had a 15-yard punt return. So his punt return game has really come on. Now, that was the New England game, so that's where he started to get his confidence. But then against Miami, he opens the game with a 39-yard kick return. It was the key to them getting 3 points on the opening possession. He also had 2 good punt returns. And so for my money, Dee Williams has absolutely turned the corner, no pun intended, to being an impact returner for this team. I would not say that it is without possibility, that it's of zero possibility that Dee Williams is going to end up being a Pro Bowl returner this year. Let's just see. But if he is, you got to give John Schneider some credit. I mean, this is a guy who went undrafted as a receiver, really had no shot as a receiver. And John Schneider gave him one of the larger guaranteed money deals to sign with the Seahawks. And I was scratching my head. I was like, I don't see it as a receiver. I know he's a return guy, but are you really going to? Well, the Seahawks have the most dynamic returner that they've had since Tyler Lockett now. And I think that's going to end up being a big deal for this team. And so Dee Williams is he's a good dude, and someone that's easy to cheer for as well. All right. Next on the list, A.J. Barner. Yeah. AJ Barner, not the sexiest, position or reason. AJ Barner is not like having some massively impactful season as a receiving tight end. He's even had, honestly, some real problems in pass protection. And I was kind of hard on him in preseason. I got to say, I didn't think the blocking that I wanted to see was there, but he's turned it on in the run blocking game, especially in the first game of the season, but also against Miami. It came back again. And remarkably, AJ Barner was the highest graded Seahawk on offense last week, as a matter of fact. 89.8 grade overall. So kudos to him on that. But what's really gotten my attention is the run blocking. And AJ Barner right now has a 65.6 run blocking grade. That's 13th in the NFL among tight ends. That's not nothing. And really, if I limit it to guys that have played, a reasonable amount of snaps, it goes even higher. I mean, he's played 75 snaps. There's a bunch of guys on this list that have played less than 60 snaps. If I just limit this to 60 or greater snaps, then AJ Barner is where did it go? Doesn't matter. Anyway, he's been doing really well as a run blocking tight end, and I think that's the important point. Got it. All right. Anyway, I was going to try to change it, but never mind. I'm going to keep going. So I think AJ Barner deserves some credit for his contributions, and I think he could be big in this game if he's given an opportunity to help clear some way for Kenneth Walker, who I think we hope is back this week. I think there's reason to be hopeful that he will be back this week. And this is why you drafted him. You did not draft him to be a vertical threat and to be Travis Kelce catching the ball. But even there, he's done okay. When he's got an opportunity to make a catch, he's done it, shown some strength after the catch. I don't think he's ever going to be a dynamic receiver, but he's showing potential to be a solid blocking tight end, and that's what you drafted him to be. Next on the list, this is where we go a little bit different. This, by the way, all whites Monday night is going to look so fresh. Like the crisp whites against the Lions blacks, unreal. So what I wanted to call out here is that if you're looking at run defense, okay? You're looking at run defense and you're looking at the cornerback room. Last year, this was an issue. This was an issue. And Reek Woolen especially was benched partially because of his tackling, because of this issue as a run defender. Right now, guys, there are 35 cornerbacks that have a 69 grade or higher for run defense. And the Seahawks have 3 of them. Devin Witherspoon is 4th in the NFL, 86.5 run defense grade. By the way, Carlton Davis, who plays for the Lions, is above him. He has a 90.6. So keep an eye on Carlton Davis as a run defender. But Devin Witherspoon's 86.5. Trey Brown, 75.1. And Reek Woolen, 69.0. If you want to know, last year, Reek Woolen's run defense grade was 37.3. In his previous year, it was 49.1. His tackling grades in those years, 38.6, 38.7. This year, Riq Woolen has a 69 run defense grade and a 67.2 tackling grade. He is a complete player this year. This is the best corner in football. I wouldn't trade Riq Woolen for any other corner in football. With his physical skills and with his now proving that he is, like, he put time into his body this year, this offseason. He's clearly put time into his craft. He is willing to put himself in there physically. I mean, this is the guy. I think this guy is going to be the best cornerback in the NFL if he is not already. Trey Brown, who I talked to this offseason and said that his biggest focus was to put on a little muscle and be able to get back to hitting and getting run support. When I asked him his favorite play so far in the season, he said his first week against the Broncos when he hit the guy on an end around and knocked him out of bounds and forced a fumble. Like, it wasn't the Cortland Sutton breakup on third down. That was a great coverage play. He was like, yeah, that was fun too. But he loved knocking the crap out of that guy on the end around. Well, Trey Brown, his run defense grades have been better than Riq Woolen's previously. They've been 64, 64, 58. He's at 75. He's one of the best run defending corners in football so far this year. He's 14th overall. And his tackling grade, 80.3. Easily his career high. He was a 48.1 tackler last year. So you then add that to Devin Witherspoon, who is been good at this since he came into the league, but now is even better. This is the best run defending cornerback room in football. And I don't know that anybody would have tried to make that case before the season started, that was even possible, let alone that it was true. So I think this is a hidden group hero aspect of what's going on with the Seahawks. Next on the list, and if you haven't given the show a like and click subscribe, please be sure to do that. Would appreciate it. Here's one that's going to be fun. Let's do it. Laken Tomlinson. I almost did a whole show just on Laken Tomlinson film, but I knew nobody would watch it. I think that Laken Tomlinson has done things that people do not appreciate and do not realize. He is one of the best run blocking guards in football this year. I've watched all 60 of his run blocking snaps, like all 60 of his last 60 run blocking snaps. I believe I believe the grade. This is a guy that's making a difference in the run game. And for what it's worth, he is the 11th graded guard in the NFL with a 76.2 run block grade. Not only is that, the highest on Seattle for guards this year and one of the highest in the NFL, it's also the highest in the NFC West, by the way. It's the highest run blocking grade the Seahawks have had from any offensive lineman since 2020. And yes, Charles Cross has a much higher run blocking grade this year, but I'm just focusing on, this from a relevance perspective. And this is why, he has been an absolute problem in pass protection. I'm not going to argue that. But if you don't think that run blocking and being being able to be an effective running team is part of how you solve your pass protection problems, you're wrong. The Seahawks, one of the best ways they're going to be able to reduce the pass blocking issues is to be able to become a more effective run blocking team, a more effective run team in general. And now, I don't think anyone's going to mistake this for Walter Jones and Steve Hutchinson on the left side. But if I just look at guards and tackles in the NFL, and I just look at run blocking, you have the number 2 and the number 21 ranked run blocking offensive linemen on the same side of the line in Seattle. Charles Cross has a 90.6 run block grade. He got back to his bad self against Miami in that regard. And Laken Tomlinson is 76. So you have the makings of potentially an effective left side of the line, and then you add Connor Williams at center, who has been more effective run blocking so far than pass blocking, and that's been consistent through his career. You have the makings of something effective on the left side. And I gonna check chat. I'm sure that everybody's freaking out, making fun of this take. I don't if I was worried about what people thought, I would not do what I do, because there's a lot of reasons to be embarrassed about some of the things I think and do. But I just think Laken Tomlinson is not a total loss. And I think there's people that maybe feel like he is. And so wanted to kind of bring a little bit of different perspective there. If you haven't already, head on over to ftnfantasy.com. Use promo code HBAM. HBAM gets you 15% off FTN Plus or greater sub. And you won't regret it. Hang out over there in the Discord channel. Get access to the betting stuff. In fact, I'm going to take a quick break here to look at, let's see what the line has done in this game. I told you on Tuesday that I thought the line was going to move towards Seattle, and that I think the line for this game against the Lions should be -2. The Lions should be 2-point favorites. That's what I think. Ultimately, they started at like a 4.5 point favorite. It is now down to 3.5 points. I think it's going to still move. I think it's going to get under 3. That's what I think. So you can get access to all that just by using promo code HBAM over at ftnfantasy.com. And you want to get FTN Plus or greater sub. All right. Moving on. Zach Charbonnet. Let's talk a little Zach Charbonnet. Now, I like picking these guys that also get a lot of crap from me, from other people, because it's fun to kind of highlight things that you might not know about somebody. Well, it occurred to me that, okay, we all know Zach Charbonnet had his best game as a starter last week against Miami. 2 touchdowns, 91 yards rushing, finished the game, great final touchdown run. Just great stuff. I think one of the things people don't know about Zach Charbonnet, or maybe have not done the math on, Zach Charbonnet is 4th in the NFL in touchdowns. Did you know that? Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, Kyron Williams all have 5 touchdowns this year. You know who's next? Zach Charbonnet with 4. You might have forgot. He caught the 29-yard touchdown from Geno in game 1. He had the short rushing touchdown against the Patriots in week 2. And then he had 2 more in week 3. So, yes, Zach Charbonnet has been, I think, a little bit less impressive than I would like as a runner. He's been a little slower than I would like as a runner. If I told you like his grades, they're not impressive. And I think that that's accurate. His run grade is not bad. His run grade is 68.7. It's not great, but not exactly second round pick material. But what I think deserves just some recognition is he's getting in the end zone. And his game against the Dolphins was of the caliber of a player that, you know, you're happy to have on the field. And that's the first time this season you could really say that. I think it looked like he was getting some confidence in that game. And we'll see. We will see if that leads to bigger and better things. I'm curious. They have a stat here on elusive rating for running backs. And I'm curious where Zach Charbonnet ranks in elusive. I've not looked this up before now. Give me some guesses. Where does Zach Charbonnet rank for elusive rating? This means missed tackles forced, plus from receptions, running attempts, and then yards after contact. So they have this formula for come up with elusive rating. Where do you think Zach Charbonnet ranks among all NFL running backs in elusive rating? I see a guess of 8th. Anyone else? 17th for Mr. Cashman. I'll tell you, I would not have guessed where he ranks. Number 2. Zach Charbonnet is behind only Devin Singletary of the Giants in elusive rating. He has forced 12 missed tackles. He has forced 18 missed tackles. 12 have been on rushes. 6 have been on receptions. His yards after contact, he has 137 yards after contact. I wouldn't have guessed that. He is ahead of Chuba Hubbard. He is ahead of James Conner. He's ahead of Ramondre Stevenson. It's impressive. It's very impressive. I did not know that, but now I do. And guess what? Kenneth Walker would rate just above him if he qualified. He doesn't have enough snaps. But just from that one game, Kenneth Walker has an even higher elusive rating. So maybe Zach Charbonnet deserves a little bit more credit than we've been giving him. So that is another hidden hero for your Seahawks. You know, I couldn't do one of these without figuring out a way to highlight Geno Smith. Geno Smith is not, I mean, he is like the ultimate hidden hero in the NFL. I mean, that's the reality. But I wanted to highlight something specific about what Geno Smith has done this year that I didn't even know until this morning when I started looking into it. I've told you about his progression as a decisive elite processor who is getting rid of the ball faster than he ever has, right? We've talked about that. We've talked with Robert Mays about his ability to, be a pocket playmaker and, manipulate the pocket. We've seen him run the ball for a touchdown. We've done all these things, right? Well, PFF has an interesting thing they do, and I talked about this in one of my previous episodes about where pressure is being created from. And they can allocate the pressure to, or they can assign the pressure to a quarterback, to any position on the offensive line, to tight ends, or to like running backs or other players, right? Last year, the Seahawks were in a situation where Geno Smith was responsible for the 5th fewest percentages of pressure. He was responsible for 6.5% of pressure that he felt, which was a lot of pressures last year. So he was very good at it, but still not zero. This year, through 3 games, Geno Smith is one of only 2 quarterbacks in the NFL that is responsible for 0% of his pressures. 0.0%. And maybe you just want to make a gallows humor joke about the fact that's just because his offensive line hasn't given him a chance to be responsible because they've been so bad. Fine. But what that tells me is Geno Smith is not running into pressure. He is not holding on to the ball too long in most cases. And I think that's worth acknowledging. That this is another area where he has shown again that he is not degrading in his mid-30s. He is getting better each and every year. And as a side point, to get back to the Stone Forsythe thing for a second, right tackle was such a disaster last year for this team. It was responsible for 37% of the pressures, just the right tackle position. That was number 1 in the NFL. This year, it's 25%. That's not like anything you want to celebrate. It's still 8th most in the NFL, but it's not number 1. And that's one that you don't want to be number 1 in. So just a recognition that there's a little bit of progress there. So that's Geno Smith and his pressure management. All right, Jonathan Hankins. How hidden of a hero is Jonathan Hankins? This was the best picture I could find of Jonathan Hankins as a Seahawk. Yeah. So Jonathan Hankins certainly belongs on this list. Had his best game as a Seahawk last week. And I think that one of the pieces that you look at with Jonathan Hankins is just, I'll tell you a number you probably wouldn't know. Jonathan Hankins has 3 tackles for loss on the season. That's not normal for nose tackles to have TFLs. That's just not their jobs. Generally, they're not getting chances to do that. I believe, let's see, I'm going to check one guy here. I believe that is the number 1. He's number 1 in the NFL for tackles for loss among nose tackles. And in fact, he's 19th in the NFL for any player whatsoever in tackles for loss with 3. There is a fun little thing called run stop rate. And I'm curious, I've not looked at this. Let's see where Mr. Hankins ranks on run stop rate. He is 19th in the NFL among all interior defensive linemen in run stop rate with 10.6%. He is right there with Jeffrey Simmons. He is above Devon Godchow from New England, who is a renowned run blocker, a run stopper. He's above Ashawn Robinson. He's above Jalen Carter, Zach Sealer. Christian Wilkins. So he has been the Seahawks' best run-stopping player on the line. And as we all know, this last week, he had to play a lot more. And it was his best game. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It was his best game. And the grades backed it up. Had a 78.5 grade, 78.4 run defense grade. And I'm curious, if we just look at just last week, where did he rank among defenders? He was the 7th highest graded run defender in the NFL last week, just above Dexter Lawrence, above Michael Pierce, Christian Wilkins, Tavondre Sweat. And I'm curious, his grade overall, the 78.4 and 78.5 overall, 78.4 run defense grade. I'm curious, when's the last time he had a game that high? Well, you got to go back a little bit. I'm going back to 2021. He had a 78.2 graded game in 2021, but that still isn't as high. So let's keep going back. When's the last time he had a higher grade? Last time he had a higher grade was in 2020. So this was his highest graded game in years. And this is a guy that back in like 2017 and earlier, like 2013 to 2017, he was one of the highest graded interior defensive tackles in football for the Giants. So I think Jonathan Hankins deserves a lot of credit for what he's done. And he's definitely among the hidden heroes, and he's going to be a absolute pivotal part of the game this week against Detroit. He is our last hidden hero. That was the last of the hidden heroes I had prepared for this show. I'm curious for all of you. Anyone you think I missed? Anyone think that there's a guy that I should have listed that I did not? And also curious if there's anyone that you disagree with. I see someone saying about Jason Myers. I admit I thought about Jason Myers. I did think about it. I think he's been mostly good this year. But it felt a little jinxy, heading into Monday night. So let's just keep it real there. Michael Dickson is an interesting one. See this from Josh Cashman. The Seahawks are 23rd in the NFL in net yards per punt. And so that to me gives me pause about Michael Dickson being on this list. He's certainly been kicking the ball well. So if you go yards per punt, he's 8th in the NFL. But his touchback rate is 25th among punters. His inside the 20 rate is 31st among punters. So Michael Dickson, as much as we all love him, I don't think has actually been doing as well as you might think. He has not helped field position as much as I would like him to be helping field position. I see Pharaoh Brown as a list. Pharaoh just hasn't played enough for me to say he's a hidden hero. I think he's certainly a candidate for being one, but I don't know that I can do that after one game. Um, outside of that, I see people mentioning coaches. I think that's absolutely valid. I think Carl Scott is one I would qualify as a hidden hero. We're going to see. Scott Huff has a chance certainly to be one. But he's got his work cut out for him. So where do we go from here? Today we will hear from Geno Smith, talk to some of the players. We will get our first injury report. We know that Uchenna Nwosu practiced yesterday. We'll find out. I'll get you guys some information on whether some of these other guys are practicing. Then we talk to Adam Dirty and Ryan Grubb later this afternoon after practice. And tomorrow, Mike Sando will be back on the show. So the Mike Sando show Friday morning. Saturday, we will have Seahawks Saturday with Jeff Simmons. And then I will fly out Sunday. I do not know when or what I will do with my show. I'll probably do an early morning show Sunday. And then Monday, we'll do a Robert Mays Monday, but it'll be a preview instead of a review. Robert and I both will be in Detroit, and we'll catch that game. So I've requested to hopefully get access to the field for post-game. It would be fun to stand on the field, hopefully after another win, talk about how the Seahawks did. So a lot of great stuff coming up. It's going to be, really, really fun the next few days. I see someone suggesting Draymond Jones. I thought about doing Draymond Jones. I definitely did. I think he is borderline. I think Draymond had a rough first game. I thought his last game was his best game. And I think I'd want to see a little bit more of that before I'd say hidden hero. But I think Draymond Jones is on the right track, and I'm looking forward to seeing him continue to take steps forward. He's going to get potentially a lot more opportunities inside with the state of the interior line with Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy probably not playing this week, but we'll find out. All right, everybody. If you haven't given the show a like and click subscribe, please do. If you haven't headed over to ftnfantasy.com, signed up using HBAM as your promo code, please do. I'd appreciate all of those things, and I think you will get a lot out of them. And until I see you next, I wish you all a wonderful Thursday. And I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HawkBlogger. This has been episode 186, 186 straight days of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care, y'all.